Hello, my name is Sue Brown, and I'm going to be giving you some tips and tricks for updating an existing legacy application to upload to the cloud. Here's the Appian disclaimer. Here are a few things I'm going to go over in this session. First, I'm going to have considerations for conversion. We're going to talk about database connections. We are going to also talk about third-party tools, Microsoft products. We're going to have some I&I considerations, database tuning, and then most importantly, the file access, how this differs from local versus the cloud. I am Sue Brown. I've been doing PowerBuilder since version 2. As you can see, I've been doing quite a few web and mobile apps lately. For the most part, though, I still work with legacy PowerBuilder applications, and we are currently using 2019. My sponsor company is Pharmacy First. I'm the manager of software development there. And then I have my highlighted company profile. I own my own company as well, which I founded in 1991 in Atlanta, Georgia. And I would say 90% of all my applications were built in PowerBuilder. So I'm going to give you a little bit of history of the project that I'm going to show you today. First, it was originally, the original app was created in DBase using a Clipper compiler. And then I converted to PowerBuilder in 1994 using a Microsoft Access database. In 1998, I then converted it to a MySQL database. So, if my recollection is correct, this app was done in version 4, 5, 6, 9, 10.5, and 12.5. It's gone through several names, and the version I'm going to show you today is actually a rebranded version that's specifically used for one of the companies that has used the product. However, the main version is still out there and used. I just haven't converted it to the web yet, which is next. Okay, so I'm going to give you some reasons for migrating an app. First is the existing local application is still viable in the marketplace. They actually use it every day. However, we need to support a staff that wants to work remote. I'm hearing more and more from the smaller corporations or smaller companies that in order to keep the staff, they'd like to be able to give them that opportunity to work some of the time from home. And a lot of this staff is actually partly in the office, partly at home. We need that transition to go pretty seamless. Also, they'd like to acquire top talent across the country and our world. This particular company is not in an extremely remote area, but it's not an extremely populated. It's not like New York City or someplace like that where there is lots of top talent available. So they need that ability to incorporate some of the better talent across the country. Then we need to make it easy to acquire and remove users from application without having to get on remote machines. If we're going to take a chance on hiring people outside of our local area, we need that ability to be able to remove them or add them quickly, depending on what is required. And we need to make it easy for staff to change their machine without all the work required to put a new computer into a network configuration. A lot of the companies that used my program in the past would have an entire department with laptops, and so the reps in the field would be getting a laptop directly from, well, you can imagine all the expense involved. You've got your hardware, you've got the people putting together the laptops, you know, so that there's a lot of expense. We're trying to eliminate that. So I had some considerations from before migrating, and I thought I would share those with you. One is the database connections. I have more than one database connection. Is that going to work? The second is third-party tools use. You can imagine after having an application out here this long, how many third-party tools I have had to use because I either did not have the ability to do that within the current version of PowerBuilder, or what I needed was I needed to be an extension. So I need to decide how I'm going to incorporate those third-party tools or if I can convert them. The next thing is licensing to Microsoft and or Adobe if needed. In this particular case, I need Microsoft and Adobe. This can get fairly expensive. However, there's some new options, and we'll talk about that. And then again, the file access options. We want this to look seamless. We don't want to have to retrain anybody. And then we'll talk a little bit about speed considerations. So the app may have worked just fine on our local area network, and then we left that, and now we're going to the cloud. Is that going to be good or bad? We'll discuss that. And then we need to talk about the user needs, because when it's all said and done, if the user can't use the program the way that it's intended, then it's kind of a moot point. First, we'll talk about the database connections. I actually have two database connections with this program. First, I have a local database, which is used for the main application, and then I have a website database. Now, here's my third-party considerations. I used Exceed FTP, Exceed Zip Compression, and the WinterTree Spell Checker. So, when it came down to the end of the deciding what we were going to do, I actually decided that we could continue to use these third-party tools because they do work even in Windows 10. I didn't have to upgrade anything. I think eventually I will be using the FTP and the zip that currently comes with Appian, but until that time I will continue to use Exceed. Microsoft Adobe licensing. So I do need Excel, Word, Mail. They're highly integrated in my product. So the great thing about the Microsoft Office 365 Cloud version is it allows you to transfer that license that you're using in the office to your remote area very easily. So Microsoft Office 365 is not that expensive, and it works perfect for this particular application. For the most part, I replaced some of the common reporting tools with Appian PDF tools. However, I did have to break down and have one complete version of Adobe. It's available on the server for the more complex routines. That also helps me with some of the speed. However, it does do one Adobe at a time, but at this particular time, it's working just great for this application. To kind of give you an idea of how intensive and how come I need Adobe running on that local machine, I have files that are coming in with Excel. I have files coming in with Word. I have a customized form product that has taken customized SRDs using the data window where it exports and imports them back in for each company. And those need to come in and create PDFs, and then sometimes they just have a PDF they want to attach, as well as I also have an audit program and that application, and we need the ability to take that PDF. So you might, if you were doing, this does both audits and inspections, so if you're doing the audit side of things, you might have an audit, you might have an Excel sheet, you might have a PDF, and you need to put all three of those together for the final customer PDF. If you are an inspector, you might have your customized form that I have, maybe a Word document with some additional information, and again, maybe some other PDFs. The customized forms also handles photos, it handles diagrams, all that kind of thing. It converts into a PDF for them. So one of the first things is speed considerations, and this will seem obvious, but you need to think about it. You need to check your database for performance issues. I've had this database a long time, and originally it was created in Microsoft Access and imported back over to MySQL. Now, I've also learned a lot over the years, so I have gained some information that allows me to do some performance tweaks, make sure my indexes are correct. In some instances, I added some sequence numbers, that type of thing, anything to help with the performance. And any of those little shortcuts you can make helps the application work to the same speed that they're used to seeing inside the office. And then the next thing you do need to think about is check application for possible ways to speed up complicated screens. Now, I had one particular screen that had, I think it's got 8 or 9 tabs on it, and when it was running locally, for whatever reason, I had loaded the entire set of tabs every single time you came in. And actually, the user may only use 1 or 2 tabs when they're working. So the first thing I did is I took that code, tweaked it a little bit so that it loaded the database, the windows that were attached to databases when you clicked on the tab. So, you know, why do a database load if you don't need to? They may not even go into that tab. It also kind of helps too because it is in a case, it's like redesigning that tab as well. Okay, the next thing we'll talk about is user needs. Access to local resources. Now, the one thing I have been impressed with this Appian product is that the ability to get a hold of your local resources is so much easier than it is, say, a VPN or sometimes even a website. Being able to get a hold of your printers, being able to grab files locally, that type of thing. This helps a lot. And then here's the big thing that I'm going to be showing. It must be able to upload documents and appear seamless as if running the application locally. The first users that we were putting on this product had been using this product inside of a building where they all were working together. There was one server, and you know, they would click on their icon and they would continue to run the program. But the big thing was, is if we were going to transition them to the cloud, I didn't want to have to teach them anything new. So the whole concept of uploading and downloading from the file server needed to look like it was seamless, needed to look like it didn't change at all. And I'll show you how I did that. So first things first, we need to start the migration. So we actually put our PowerServer on a Windows server running IIS, and these steps are just a real high glance of how to set it up. Appian's really good at giving you the full instructions and can help you get that part taken care of, but I thought I'd just go over some of them with you. Then you install PowerServer by downloading the Appian Bootstrap installer. And that's what that looks like. And then after downloading, you run the installer and you pick the PowerBuilder 2019. You click install and pick the universal install. And then from the universal installer, you'll install the PowerServer components. And then once the install is complete, you're going to go to the init pub directory, browse the Appian folder, and set up the file service. And that is, of course, if you're going to be using any kind of file utilities. In this case, I had to actually open that XML file up because it defaults to, I think, PNG and JPEG, basically just image files. So I needed to add a bunch of new types. I needed to add the XLSX. I needed to add the DocX. I needed to also add 2 more types to actually run my Forms application as well as my Appian or my audit application, so that those files could interact with the server. And then the next thing is you go into AEM and you change the password. I'm making a note here. We had a situation actually where I work where someone didn't change the password. We were going through a security audit and that person was able to get into there, change it, and raise havoc with our system. So just kind of a world note that I wanted to give everyone. Okay, so then we need to set up deployment. So the first thing is we're going to convert our PowerBuilder version 12.5 app to PowerBuilder 2019. Next thing is I added the Appian Workarounds Pibble to the library list, and that's because several of the commands that I'm going to use is in that particular Pibble, and you need to add that. And then you need to do a full compile and take care of any errors. This went very smoothly, actually, surprisingly smoothly. I just kind of put it in there, very few little tweaks, and we were up and running. Then you use the little toolkit by setting up deployment. So I kind of included some of these screens. You kind of choose the workspace. It does a lot of it for you. And then set up databases. Again, I said I used MySQL, but I have two different transaction objects, SQL CA, and then the transaction object for the web. And I've got two screens here. I was showing how you can see them both from the AEM and the toolkit. And then the next thing you do is you go to the additional files. At this point, I'm going to set up an INI file, and this is also where you set up your images files. I've been really pleased that if you get all your images put in there, I don't have any problems with, once I convert it to the web, of seeing everything that I need going forward. The next thing that needs to be done is to set up the web app, as well as the IWA settings. Now, the IWA is the app settings. That is primarily what I use because it's closest to the environment they're used to doing. They usually have an icon on their desktop. They double click on that. They don't need to go to a browser. I've also found that the IWA is just, I like the way that it updates. I like the way that it feels. And like I said, it's closer to what the user's experience has been. Okay, I'm going to show you a demo now. So you see here, here's my little icon. I'm going to double click on it. You see loading app as IWA. If you hadn't seen that, you would have thought you were just sitting there locally. I'm going to go ahead and sign in. And here's my application. So there you are. I have a test customer up and running. You can see how easily that comes back and forth. And I'm going to take that down for now. Okay. Do a quick overview here. Okay, we're going to talk about some code changes. So the first thing that I needed to do in this particular application, it's actually going to still be running as a standalone application as well as running on the web. So if they're in their office, I'm going to continue to use that same environment that was there before. While they're working on the web, they're actually going to be running the cloud version of it, but in effect, it is the same version. So if it's running from the web, we need to start the file servers and have it available. So the first thing I need to do, and this is available in your workarounds, is this Appian get client type. And I use this a lot. I also set up an instance variable that's in a global function that allows me to at any time know, is this the web or not the web? And I use that especially when I start going into the file service area. So if IS Appian type equals web, the one thing I do need is the file service. So I'm going to at that time also create the file service so it's available. Okay, so this file movement concept, again, must appear seamless. So what I want to do is be able to upload a file from a local machine. If I've got an Excel file, Word file, PDF, whatever it is, I just want to be able to upload anything from the local machine. Well, within, of course, the constraints that I've given it. And then I want to record the file name and location in a table. In this case, the table is called case attach. I want to be able to double click on the file, have it downloaded to the local temp directory. And this is that seamless approach. I want it to look just like I'm sitting there. Now I know, and you know, that I have to move that file from the cloud back to the local in order to manipulate it. However, I don't want the user to have to, understand that to any length. And then I want to be able to make changes to the file and save the file. And again, make it look like they've been working with it locally all along. And so the way that I got around this is when you click the Save button in the application, it's actually bringing the file back to the server. And so I'm uploading that file from the temp directory back to the cloud server. And then, of course, I delete the file from the temp directory just to keep things clean. And then, of course, it takes it off their local application just in case, we don't want them to have access to it later. Okay. So I've included in this PowerPoint the basic logon functions, the upload functions, the download functions, and then I've got upload functions to the temp directory to kind of give you some examples of how I did that. And then, of course, the log off. So next thing I want to talk about is INI considerations. All right. When I first started this product, I used INI files for everything. I had situations where when they did the mapping of the drives, this person would be hooked to an M drive, this person would be hooked to a D drive, this person would actually be running the server, and this is like way back when, before best practices really put into place. And so I use the INI file to tell me, well, where is the location of the main paths. So that was something that I could eventually, get away from. But a lot of it was still in there. So that was kind of a concern, and I had an issue with the way that Appian always copies the INI back out every time that you upload. So I had to come up with something that would not disrupt the way the program had worked all these years, but yet give it the new functionality. So the one thing I did with, and I was quickly became frustrated with the way the client INI worked. And so first thing is to push some of the options into the registry. So the username, which needs to be changed depending on whose machine we're actually sitting on, because they don't like to have to put in their username all the time. I push that into the registry. And because I had already created a custom function that ran the INI, it was easy to change the function to save to a table instead of the INI files. So I still have the crux to the INI. The client INI that comes from Appian actually is just the location of where the INI is located at, and anything that I want to constantly overwrite all the time that the user's not going to be able to change, I'm using that for that. But I also have a local INI under my temp directory, and that allows me to kind of keep some of the same functionality that I had in there before, as well as I created a table that keeps a lot of the INI functions that really should not change from user to user. And like I said, I went into that function. I go and see, did I happen to sort in the table? If I stored it in the table, I look at it there. If not, it comes back and then goes through the regular INI process. So I'm going to kind of give you a demo of that. I can't really show you, it kind of works in the background, but I will show you this. I go to, I create this thing called PR temp, and then web files, templates. And then there's an auto file sitting there. So let me go back into my program. Like I said, you saw it, it didn't really sit there and terrorize me on the INI files anymore. going to show you the way that the obviously have that one open before I pull this up. You can see that it works really quite fast. I'll show you how the file function works. So I can add a file. I can add a PDF. You'll see down here below it says adding file. So that file is added. I'm going to add an Excel file. You can see that comes up. Now I'm going to actually save this. I'm going to get it out just like you normally would. Close this. Use my other mouse. There we go. Oops. Go back into that file. Show you how I can make a change. So there's my Excel. I can double click. Because I uploaded it, it sees it's on its local machine. I can either overwrite it. If I overwrite it, it's going to bring in the what the server has. Okay. And I can add something to it. Imagine all the things I do. I hit save. I close it out. Now once I hit the save button, you'll notice it says test Excel. And when it's all said and done, it's going to, it's kind of hard to tell, but it now says test Excel 1. So now that is at the local location. You'll notice that the full path says c:/doc/Charles. So that C drive is actually the one that is out in the server. Now this is a test server, so it's a C drive, but generally it might be an M drive or a T drive, depending on what they have set where they actually keep all of their applications at. Now I'll show you too. So I said that I have a list of forms. So I'm going to choose one of these. I'm going to hit add. Now, this actually grabs the file and creates what I call an MPZ. I double click on it. You'll see it'll pop up in here. I haven't loaded this yet, so it's asking me, do I want to update the form? Update the form, and here's one of those customized forms that I have that has all the validation, everything in, and I can make changes to it, save it. So you can see the spell check works, everything works. So, excellent. Okay. And then I'll show you, here's my audit program. Audit program kind of does the same thing. It goes and creates a local file in the temp, and then puts it all back together and then brings it back to the file server. Okay, there's my audit. Add. Right. So it goes and sets it up. Now when I double click on it, you'll see it pop up, and you can see the spell checker is still working. I'm going to exit out of there, and there you go. And like I said, the user doesn't have to upload anything other than when they add a file that looks like it always did. They added the file locally. All right, minimize this. I'll go back to my PowerPoint. So let's talk a little bit about the Adobe PDF. So I need to create an application that will do the PDF from the server itself. Now, eventually I'm going to make an actual API that will do this, but at the time, I needed to get this up fairly quickly. Already had the code written, so I put this app together. I actually had used this particular application for a website because, again, all of my forms are created from PDFs. I take those PDFs, from data windows, then where I export and import SRDs, and then I go and take those data windows and create create the PDFs from there. So I didn't want to change that process in any way. So I did that as well, actually, on a website, because I also have a program that I take those SRDs and make ASP pages and put them into a regular web application. This is a way so that I could create PDFs on the file server if I needed to send it back. So the reason for doing that, it saves times because I've already done this before. Files, and the other thing the fields would have to be downloaded otherwise. So if I was working in a cloud environment, I would have to bring all those files down locally in order to put that PDF together. Because I had so many different ways I was bringing them together, I found it easier just to have one application that sits there in synchronous mode and just pulls it up. And then the other thing is extra expense. That was the first thing my client said is, did you see how much it costs for me to buy that for every one of my users? And I'm like, well, let's get rid of the extra expense and we will do that for every user and so we really only need one full version of Adobe, and because it's running synchronously, I don't need any special version of it. Okay. So I'm just going to show you real quick what that looks like. There's not much to see here, but it kind of give you an idea what you could do. And again, like I said, I'm kind of actually looking forward to all the new stuff in 2019, and I'll probably make an API out of it, and you'll see how easy it is. So you see I have a little start button. This computer's not hooked to the actual database that it needs to, so I'm getting an error. But it would sit there and monitor looking for new things, and then the minute it sees one, you'd see it populate through here, create the PDF, and then it would attach itself to the database. And so there's a couple advantages to that. You can move on, and the PDF will be there later when it's time to go to that next step for that client. Okay, so the third-party tools. So like I said, I have Exceed FTP and zipping tools, and I decided to keep them. I have a executable that they run that goes and registers all the DLLs and everything. And the reason I kept it, one, it still works. I mean, unless I needed it and I had some more time, I decided that was the easiest way to go. And you just need to run an install and automatically register the DLLs. And so, like I said, that works. And for most of the customers, they already had, at least if they didn't have the main application, they might have had the rep product, and it's probably already installed on their computers. Okay. So, in conclusion, if you're ready to spruce up an app that needs to move to the cloud, hopefully I gave you an idea here to create one from scratch. Either way, hopefully I've shown you that Appian does have the tools you need to take the application and move it to the cloud. Are there any questions? And here is the Appian information. Thank you.